everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you've been enjoying the content so far. But today I thought I'd do something a little different. I'm going to do a how-to guide on brims. As we know, they're all a necessary evil for our prints sometimes, because for whatever reason they just don't want to stick. Now, we've all seen all the YouTubers that, pull their brims off with such ease, and you sit there and think, how can I do that too? Well, over the years that I've been doing 3D printing, I've learned a few tips and tricks, which I'd like to share with you today. So without further ado, let's get stuck into it. First thing you want to get right is your temperature. You've probably heard that 1,000 times, but I'm here to tell you, temperature for everything is absolutely crucial. If your filament's not printing at the right temperature, then you're going to have over extrusion, under extrusion, you're going to see stringing, to name a few of the issues. Your slicer generally has a temp tower built into it. For example, this is Creality print 4.3.87062, I think it is. For me, my temp tower is under my calibration tab at the top of my window here. I go to temperature, select which material I'm printing with, the temperature range. Now, for your temperature range, you'll generally find it on your box of your filament that you have bought. Now, bear in mind those settings that they're showing on the back there is a guideline to what temperature you should be printing at. And your temp tower built into your slicer is going to give you your ideal temperature for your printer. And please realize that just because that temperature prints well on one printer doesn't mean it will print well on another. And just as a far example, I have two printers. I've got a Creality SE. I also have a Creality K1C, and the K1C requires temperatures 20 degrees higher than my SE. So even though the filament is the same, the instructions on the box are exactly the same, there is a 20 degree difference. So please run your temp towers. So I know it sounds silly, but it's going to save you a lot of headaches. As you can see, the program renders the temp tower quite easily. You send that straight off to your printer, let it print, get your right temperature, go back into your settings. Now, for me to adjust temperature, it's under material. As you can see here, my SE likes to print at 200 degrees for the particular filament that I've got at the moment, which is eSun Black filament, PLA plus, I think it is. But yeah, make sure you got that temp tower done, and it's going to save yourself a lot of hassles. Now that we've got our temperatures correct, the next thing we also now need to look at is flow calibration. Now, like temperature, flow calibration can cause, if it's wrong, can cause under extrusion, over extrusion, and stringing. So, for example, for me, my calibration for flow rate testing is under calibration, and I've got two passes that I can do. Pass 1 is my initial, pass 2 is my fine tuning. Every slicer will be different, so please see your FAQ section on how to do your flow rate calibrations. I'll just insert a quick clip here of my before and after for flow rate calibration. As you'll notice, there's a little lip down here at the bottom that is less predominant after I've done my flow rate test and got my initial flow rate actually correct for my printer. Again, I could show you the settings that I've used, but bear in mind every single printer is different. I could put two Creality SEs right next to each other, and both times the flow rate is going to be different. Now that we've got temperature and your factory flow rate settings done and out of the way, there is one more flow rate setting you have to play around with. Now, for all my testing, I just used the standard cube model that's available in Creality Print. You just find it under the File tab. I'm pretty sure most slicers will have some basic models already uploaded into the slicer, including everyone's favorite Benchy. Now, to find the initial flow rate, this is specific Creality 4.3. Again, if you want to find the setting, you may have already seen it yourself, or you can find it through your FAQ section. Maybe if just fumbling around through your settings, you might be able to find it yourself. But for Creality 4.3, advanced settings have to be on. It's under the material tab. Scroll down here and we see initial layer flow. this is the flow rate setting for your first layer. Now, here at the moment, it says 100%. Now, with that 100%, I was still getting a bit of a lip on my little cubes, as you saw in a clip beforehand. Now, I adjusted this down myself to 96%. And it was at this point that I started to lose that lip, but wasn't quite getting under extrusion on that first layer. So I felt 96% for me was a really good place to stop. Again, with your printer, this will be different. So take the settings I'm using as a grain of salt, but bear in mind of what setting I'm actually adjusting here. Now we've got the flow rates and the temperatures out of the way. The last thing we're going to do before we start adjusting Brim settings is your Z offset. Now, how you adjust your Z offset will depend on the machine you have. Some do it automatically. Some of you have to adjust it by adjusting your bed. But whichever method you have to use, make sure your Z offset is correct for your machine. Now, I've dialed in my Z offset for my machine, and I'll chuck in a little clip here, and it shows that now where I once had a lip, I now don't. And this is now the point where we can now get into playing around with your Brim settings. Now, I go here into my settings, going down to build plate adhesion. Again, this is specific to 4.3. So again, please look at your own settings or see your FAQ on where to find these. Now, again, I want you to make sure that your advanced settings are on, because more than likely these settings are going to be hidden behind this. So yeah, please make sure it's turned on. Now for the SE, the standard Brim distance. This is the setting you want to look at, your Brim distance. This is the creme de la creme. When it is at 0, we can zoom in. As you can see, the Brim is actually touching your model. Okay? Now, this is where people start to have issues and get frustrated with Brims, because it's completely attached to your model at this point. It's like it's one of the walls or something like that. And again, I'll set a clip here showing that because it's so close, it actually sticks to the model, and as you try to pull the Brim off, it is now tearing, leaving behind these nasty edges that you then have to use heat or an X-Acto knife to try and remove. Now, your slicer may have a different distance already set up there. Again, this is specific to what you're seeing is Creative Print 4.3. So make sure you take note of the original number that's there. Now, for me personally, I went straight to point zero. Now that you've done your first little initial print and you can see how much your Brim is sticking to your model, we again head back into the build plate adhesion settings. Now, again, note the distance from the Brim distance on my slicer will probably be different to yours. So for me, I started mucking around with this setting by changing the distance to 0.1. Slice that again. Now, all of a sudden, you'll notice here, there is a slight gap between your print itself and the Brim. This is where things start to get a little easier to remove. Now, again, I still had the issue that this was still attached to the model a bit, and I still wasn't getting a clean removal. So I went to the next step. As you can see, there's a gap, again, slightly bigger. But this time, as you can see from the clip I'm going to insert here, that the Brim came away quite easily and was still attached to the model when I pulled it off the build plate, leaving a very smooth edge on the model. Now, again, bear in mind, these are settings that work for my printer. They won't necessarily work for yours. It's a case of you're going to have to play around with settings with your own printer, do a bunch of test models and see what's working for you and what's not. On the extreme end of this, I actually changed the setting from 0.2 to 0.3. Again, we'll slice this. As you can see, the gap is now getting quite considerably away from the model. I'll insert another clip here. You can just see I go to pull the model off the build plate and the brim remains, which means the brim is no longer attached to the model at all. You'll now, with these settings, you can now sit there, muck around with your brim distances and find what works really well for your printer. Now, obviously, how much you want to muck around with these settings to try and get your brim as good as how you think it should be is going to be completely up to you. Again, the settings I use today don't necessarily mean that they're going to work on your printer. And this will be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative. If there's anything that you'd like me to do a deeper dive in, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll see what I can do about producing a video that's more in depth on the settings that I've talked about. Anyhow, that's it for today, everyone. Bye. Catch you later.